Hi, this is Gary Alt with another in a series of interviews with post JW authors. I started this a couple of years ago and I did two or three interviews and sort of dropped the ball for whatever reason. But I was very pleasantly surprised to hear of a new book that's called Cult Girl. And we have Stacy Lee with us today to talk about it. Hi, Stacy. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for agreeing to do the interview. Cult Girl. Well, I guess the first thing, yeah, there you go. I was going to hold it up myself, but you got the hard copy. So, um, just to lay the groundwork for this, Cult Girl is a novel, so it's a fictional story, and
Mhm.
it's not specifically about Jehovah's Witnesses. It's about a high control group that mirrors the JWs in every way, as all cult groups do. So,
Mhm.
but but you chose to do it. I mean, there are a lot of post JW authors. I've interviewed a bunch. I would say that most of the books that I've read or am aware of are autobiographical in nature, so they don't read as a story as much as just sort of facts in part for chronological order, perhaps, and those are fine. There's a minority that are written in a novel kind of form, and of those, a few of them are fictional novels. Like I did one
Mhm.
years ago that's basically based on a true story. So you'd have to say it's fiction, but it's sort of not. So, but
Right.
yours is fictional. So could you just maybe talk about why you chose to do it that way?
Oh, yeah. I was experimenting with both. I was writing out my story, from my perspective only for the longest time. And then I just got it in my head that I could have more fun writing it because I'm like bored of my story by now. I would have more fun for it'd be more fun for me to make up characters and base them on people I knew and situations I was in. But then I could make twists and turns that didn't really happen in real life and make it like a little bit more fun for the
Right,
reader too.
right. Yeah, good, good. Well, plus, I mean, the arc of your story is, we'll get into it more, but it's basically someone that joins the headquarters family of this particular religious group, and then realizes that she's maybe it's not safe to be there anymore. And
Hmm.
and I know your story, which maybe you could tell us a little bit anyway, but doesn't exactly mirror that the way it happened. So it
Right.
was a great. I mean, the way you did it, I thought you kind of almost were painting yourself into a corner at one point. And I said, okay, let's see how she does this, and then it's like, wow, the ending was just so good. Um, but I wanted to ask about the cover, which we
Oh
didn't.
yeah.
But I mean, I know a little bit about it. I know that that's the Shenandoah Valley in the background, right?
Yeah.
But just tell us a little bit more about the meaning of the cover.
Well, it has a couple of different meanings. So the picture itself, the this right here, that's called the headless Madonna. And there's several of them throughout the world, but this one I took a picture of when I was in Ascana, Switzerland. So it was personal to me because I had taken a picture of it myself when I was making the trip. But I took the picture because I thought that would make a good cover to my book.
Yeah,
That it's a young woman, but she's headless. So it's kind of like, excuse me for saying so, it's kind of like being when you're in a cult and you really can't think for yourself,
right.
kind of a thing. You lose those critical thinking skills. And so I thought it was a good symbol. Not that the main character, she's got her head on pretty straight, but usually the other cult members in it don't. They've like lost their minds.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's the one thing about the character, Lily, the main character, is that she was I forget the age when her mother began looking into this new religion, but it's probably accurate to say that she was raised in it, right?
Well, in this, her parents don't join the group until she's 14.
Yeah,
So I kind of make the point that they were just not into any religion at all before then. So she never knew anything else. Her
right,
parents get involved in this new group. She doesn't even know how to compare it to another religion because she's never been in one. So yeah, it was the only religion she'd known.
right, right. And of course, Lily has a younger sister. I'm not sure how much younger, but she would be closer to those years of impressionability. So you could say that she was raised in it and really didn't know anything else.
Yeah,
So it's interesting how your character, there's so much about it that she loves and enjoys, especially the people, and she finds a certain amount of contentment with the work that she has to do, but she's constantly seeing things that are like, huh, like
yeah,
what? What did I just see? Which is not typical of the majority of high control group members, you know. But but which leads to the question of the characters themselves. So it is totally fictional. But did you base any characters on any any real people, or I don't mean for you to name the people, but did you have anything in mind, like in terms of what kind of character you wanted?
yeah. I wanted, well, the Lily, the main character. I mean, I kind of make her kind of like me, like in looks and stuff. But I kind of, I don't know who I based her on who I wanted to be, who I wish I had been back
Mhm.
then, you know, because
Right,
she
right,
does see the things that are wrong and she files them away and she does talk to someone about them and has open discussions and starts doubting things and realizes things are wrong. I didn't. I just was, I went along with everything, hook, line, and sinker. So I made her kind of the feisty character that I wish I had been.
hmm
And then some of the other characters were based on people I knew,
hmm
especially when my family did move to the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia because we went to pioneer, where the need was greater. And I met several really fun girls my age there, and the young man is based on a young man that I was, all in love with when I was like 16. Um, and so based on some people I knew there, the cult leader himself, he was pretty much made up, maybe a little amalgamation of some of the elders I knew, but not any one person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because when I read it, I mean, and I've read it twice actually. There were a couple of people that I was like, I think I know who this is, but I'm not going to name any names. But I couldn't help but notice similarities between the various underpinnings of the group, much smaller than the Jehovah's Witnesses. Maybe going back to the 1800s, it would have been that size. But and it's so you have the headquarters and in the Shenandoah Valley, and so many of the things are similar, but it could be probably any high control group. But for example, the eminent leader, Daniel Hawthorne.
Yeah.
I mean, he's essentially the governing body, right? I mean, that he's the
Yeah.
guy, right? Yeah, yeah. Which makes me think of something. This is a bit of a tangent, I suppose, but I know you also did on your what the everlovinghell.com, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Um, you did a piece on, or maybe it was just a video you did offhand. I don't know, but a one off. But you did a thing about somebody who's a cult expert. I mean, a real person that's a cult expert
Mm-hmm.
that says Jehovah's Witnesses are not one because they don't have one leader that controls it.
Mm-hmm.
So you chose to do one leader that controls this group, yet it's sort of patterned after Jehovah's Witnesses. Maybe you could explain that.
So, well, the one singular leader versus a governing body, I tried to do a little mix. Like it was just more fun for me to write that singular leader with the booming voice and the massive figure and laying down the law. But his whole upper echelon elders basically carry out his bidding, keeping everyone in line. And that's the way it works with the witnesses, right? Yeah, the governing body, whatever they are at the time, may make up a few of the rules, but it's the elders who end up whipping everybody into place, you
Right,
know?
right,
So
right.
I tried to make it a little bit of both, that fun one character that I could write, but then those upper echelon elders who also carried out his bidding and, all the rewards and punishments to the members and that sort of thing.
Right, right. And the fact is, I mean, anybody that's been at Bethel would know this, that even among the governing body, there are movers and shakers, and then there are guys that don't do as much. So that's just the way it is. Um, but no, it's interesting that you did it that way because I remember you was very eloquent speech you gave about how just because the governing body is made up of 10 or 12 or 8, whatever it is, does not disqualify that group as having that definition. So
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting that you chose to do it that way. But I think it's also simpler. I mean, I wrote something recently that I was trying to depict an actual body of elders, and it's like, oh my God, it's like like 6 or 8 characters in this story that are not even essential to the story, just because you have to show how these guys actually operate. So I like the
Yeah.
way you did it. I like the way you did it, making him the eminent, and plus the fact that he. I mean, you tell me if this is accurate or not. When he started out, just as somebody that gave speeches or published speeches or something like that, and he just started to get a following. Like I don't even know if
Hmm.
he knew that that's what was happening, but it started happening, and before you know it, he's putting together a tabernacle and right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So he was just this guy who thought he found some interesting things out about God, had a few revelations, wrote them down. People liked it, started following, and the next thing you know, it's gone to his head, and now he's, you know,
yeah,
running a
and
cult.
yeah, and I know from talking to people that have been in other high control groups or that are experts on the subject that probably there isn't a cult in existence that started as a cult. Like somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to start a cult."
Oh,
It's always
right.
something like Daniel Hawthorne, your character, where it's just like, "Hey, this is cool. I'm getting
Yeah,
all this
yeah.
admiration," which maybe probably speaks to a bit of narcissism on the individual's part.
I was just going to say that same thing because, the same thing could happen to you and I. We could, go to some event, maybe give a nice, presentation. People come up to you afterward, tell you you did a good job or whatever, or I love your book or whatever. We would never form a cult from that. But
Yeah,
if you're a narcissist to begin with, and that starts to happen to you, and you're a little psychopathic too, well, now you're going to go and form like a whole group that has to follow all your rules, and it's all going to go to your head and feed your narcissistic supply. And yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I've wondered, and I've had this conversation with other post JWs. When did it actually become, if you want to call it a cult? I don't usually throw that word around a lot, but if you want to call it a cult, I wouldn't argue with it. By the way, um, when did that happen? Was it in Russell's day, Rutherford, Nor? Like when did it happen?
Right.
And it doesn't matter when it happened because whenever the control started, which is a fairly typical of
Mm-hmm.
of like fundamentalist Protestantism. It's very typical. Whenever that started, it's just wrong. And
Yeah.
so we have what we have nowadays. So the name of the group is the Holy Brethren.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because it
Yeah.
almost has like an 1800s kind of a sound to it. But there are other groups that are like that that I've heard of. I forget the one that
Yeah.
had a similar name. But it's
Well,
interesting.
I based that on, I'm not sure this group had that exact name, but one time, just for fun, what's really funny about this too is that the Watchtower Society has now, of course, sold all their property in Brooklyn and moved into Warwick, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before they did that, I lived in Warwick, New York for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this group there. They lived in an old schoolhouse. That's also what gave me the kind of idea. Like, yes, the actual farm in Walk Hill was like kind of a brick buildings, but the idea that it looked like a school, which is what I use in the book when describing the buildings at the farm that's in the book, they look like school buildings. It's
Mm-hmm.
because this group in Warwick, New York, this small little Christian group, Warwick, New York, had bought an old elementary school. They all lived there together, and they looked like they were kind of Amish. They all wore all the guys had to wear shirts like you're wearing right now. Every guy there had a plaid shirt button down on with khaki pants. Every girl was wearing a long skirt with these like clodhopper shoes. They were very friendly to me and my husband at the time because we went in to meet them. And I think they called themselves the Holy Brethren. They were this little Christian, almost Amish group that lived in this schoolhouse, and they all dressed the same, and they didn't clap for anybody because that would be prideful. And they and they tried to convert us. And so it was a weird and interesting experience meeting these people, and I kind of used that as for part of the book.
Right. Okay. I mean, there's so many things that we could probably go on for a couple of hours about, but I want to touch on some of them about the similarities between the novel, the fictional story, and the reality, which your
Mm-hmm.
reality and mine was being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Um, but one of them is how she, and I don't want to give away the ending, but how she determines she has to leave. She has to physically leave that compound, that living arrangement to physically get out, whether or not she's trying to relieve the religion at this point in time. Well, I think she is, but she has to physically leave. So it takes a lot of bravery and a lot of planning on her part. It just kind of makes me think of how for most JWs to get out, it's not complicated in a physical way usually, unless it's somebody that's getting out of a marriage or something like that. I'm not sure if I have a question about this, but but it's interesting how it was really difficult for her to physically, to come up with a plan for how am I physically going to do this? How am I going to actually get out?
Yeah, because she's 17 and she doesn't have a car, and she's living on this farm compound, right? So and
Hmm.
she doesn't have any much money to speak of. I mean, I make it in the book so that she has a little bit of money so she can, do what she needs to maybe do to get away. But yeah, so she really is in quite the corner at the end of the book between, no one believes her, no one's on her side. She's just a kid. She's got no money. She doesn't have any working, job. She doesn't
Hmm.
have a car to get anywhere. She doesn't have a phone that she can call anyone. So yeah, she's got to be, pretty cunning to work her way around all those obstacles.
And resourceful. And that's where I said before, it seemed like you maybe were painting yourself into a corner, seemingly. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, how's this going to work? So our listeners, of course, are people that are, either PMO or POMO, I guess you call it. And maybe that's not the experience of the majority to actually have to physically leave a location. How would you think your book might be encouraging to them, or even informative to them on what qualities are needed in order to make an exit?
Mm, that's good. Well, courage for sure, because obviously when you're leaving any cult or the witnesses in particular, you don't know what's on the other side once you open that door and walk out of it, especially if you were born and raised.
Hmm.
What's out there? You don't know what's out there. You don't know what's going to happen to you. All your friends and your support network are all in the witnesses or in whatever cult you're in. So you do have to have a lot of courage because you're going to face a lot of unknowns at that point, including a belief system. Because usually by the time you're getting ready to leave, even like the Lily in the book, she's already mentally disengaged, like something's not right here
Hmm.
before she then has to physically leave. And we probably have all been through that stage where we just start towards the end before we actually make an exit of whatever kind. We've got all these doubts and we're wondering about things and we're confused. So really a lot of courage to just to know one day you'll get it all sorted out.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay on the other side of that door when you do exit. So that's a lot of courage. And after that, um, just that critical thinking, just
Hmm.
building that up at that point. She starts to do it in the book
Hmm.
because she's got someone to bounce the ideas off of for a
Right.
while.
Right.
And that's super important. So she starts building that up right before she leaves, those critical thinking skills. But that would be another thing that anyone that was in a cult is leaving, has left, really want to build up those critical thinking skills.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The way the book ends, I will say that it's a happy ending for sure, but there could be easily be a sequel, which I think you were talking about doing anyway. But there could be a sequel because
Mm-hmm.
it's like,
Yep.
all right, where is she at now? I mean, she's clearly not in mentally, and physically she's out because she's in another part of the country all of a sudden. But that's not the end of her story. Obviously, she's still a young girl. She's got a lot of building
Yeah.
to do. All that indoctrination is, well, she objects to it. Sure, she realizes it's a lot of hokum, but what's she gonna do now? And that's the thing I think where
Yeah.
like this is really encouraging is for us to realize that um, we're gonna have bad days. We're gonna have setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Have days where just something doesn't feel right, and we don't even really know why. But that's to be expected because so we're always building. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm out for like 10 or 13 years, depending upon how you count them. And there's still things I discover about myself that I need to work on. But that makes me think of knowing your experience. You have a little bit of both of that in your life, as far as like physically fleeing a high control
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Yeah, sure. Because the book kind of combines my two experiences a little bit.
Hmm.
So first half of my life, Jehovah's Witness. Second half of my life, the next 20 years till I was 48 or so. I spent with a narcissistic psychopath who was violent with me.
Hmm.
And that situation, I had to literally throw what would fit in the car and leave when he wasn't around, just so I would be, safe. Because who knows what he would have done to me if I had looked him in the face and said, I'm leaving,
Right, right,
So yeah, so I use that experience too in the book. So I don't think it's giving anything away to say that in the book, the cult leader is abusing his wife.
right.
And that's one of the things that turns the protagonist against him when she witnesses that.
Right. And what's interesting about the Irene character that it's Irene, right?
Yes, Irene's the cult
Looking
leader's
at my
wife.
notes here.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting about that is that she continues to hide it the best she can, and Lily is thinking that she's going to have an ally. I mean, she's already an ally as far as emotional support and things like that. But she's thinking she's going to have an ally in making the truth about Daniel known. But I don't want to give it away, but it's like it just shows you how that indoctrination is so
Yeah.
pernicious that Lily realizes very quickly, like, nope, that's not going to happen. I'm going to have to do this on
Yeah.
my own. So
Yeah. She realized that the cult leader's wife, who she thought she could turn to for help, is and I made sure I made this point. The cult leader's wife is indoctrinated in two ways. One, her husband's this cult leader that she's put faith in religiously, for some time. But then she's an abused woman. And Lily's mistake is thinking any abused woman wants to get away from her abuser, right?
right,
And the cult leader's wife doesn't want to get away. And so she's tried to emphasize that she was not only trauma bonded to the group and him as a cult leader, but she was trauma bonded to her husband who was abusing her, because that's what
right,
happens to abused women. They get this trauma bond with their abuser, and
right, right,
they don't leave.
right. So I tell you, this is a fairly short book as novels go. It's about 160 pages, I think, but there's so much packed in it. It's unbelievable. All of that psychology and all of that reality of indoctrination on two levels, as you said, with the wife Irene.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't even talk about Eli. I don't know if you want to talk about him, but some of the things you talk about, though, you know how high control groups love to use loaded language. In fact, they have to. It's part of the indoctrination process. So you get a pretty good share of that. One of my favorites is supportive correction. I mean, when you put that in, I was like, holy mackerel, this is not in the least bit supportive. It might be correction, but it's like, I don't know if you want to talk about that, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
We already know the cult leader's beating his wife, and at one point in the book, he gets up on the platform at one of their meetings, and in his eloquent, charming way, basically puts out this new doctrine for everyone to follow, and that's supportive correction. Basically, all it means is that all the guys can now beat their wives, and it's okay,
right,
right? But it's called supportive correction, and it's that filthy double speak that all cults do when they try to take something that's actually evil and make it sound like it's okay,
yeah.
because
Well,
they all
yeah,
do it.
yeah, it's like shunning or disfellowshipping, whatever they call it nowadays. It's the same thing where it's loving is actually the most
Yeah.
painful thing that they can inflict on someone. And it's obviously done to enforce the idea that you're a miserable piece of garbage. Got to turn around so you can get our association back. Plus, get on the back on the road to everlasting life. So yeah, it's the same idea. Supportive correction. So I mean, it's interesting that it's just husband to wife. It's the husband giving his wife supportive correction. It's not
Yes.
the other way around because a wife would never correct her husband anyway. She's supposed to be supportive, of course, because he's
Mm-hmm.
a great, wonderful man. And I mean, you got the paternalistic thing right down. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
Which leads me to another one. I can't remember because I know we talked about this when you were writing the book, but this group practices disfellowshipping and shunning, but you call it something else, and I can't remember.
Oh yeah, hold on, even I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's one of the chapter titles. Hold on. The disengagement.
Disengagement, right? Disengagement.
Yeah,
Same
yeah. I
idea.
was
And I know,
trying to, yeah, we went back and forth. Remember, we were texting back and forth for the
right,
longest time because we're trying to come up with a word that is just what you said. It sounds positive, but it's really not.
right, right,
and and so I came up with that word because in the book, the cult leader also arranges marriages.
Hmm.
So the young woman who gets disengaged, disfellowship, shunned, she's also engaged to a fellow that the cult leader has arranged for her to be engaged to, that she
Hmm.
doesn't love. And
Hmm.
that character rebels and falls in love with someone outside the cult. And then she is disengaged from the group because of that.
Hmm.
So it kind of had that double meaning. That's what gave me the ideas, because this cult leader is actually betrothing or engaging couples without them being in love or liking each other or anything. He's just picking people out and putting them together. And so, and then you just throw that positive, like, oh, engaged. And then you throw that little diss in front of there.
Right,
And
right, right.
yeah,
So it applies to an actual betrothal or engagement, or it applies to just anybody that gets disengaged or disfellowship from the religion. I thought that was
yeah.
brilliant. And you're actually the first one. This is going back several years, but you're the first one. Well, I guess it was when you were trying to find the perfect word, and I was trying to help you. I don't think I did though, but when you pointed out that disfellowship is like the perfect culty kind of high control word, because the
Yeah.
root of it is fellowship, or fellow is the root, but fellowship, it's warm and
Yeah.
fuzzy. It's wonderful. Hey, we're in fellowship. Hey, we're having a great time. We love each other. Just put that little dis in front of it, and it means nope, you don't get that anymore. Oops,
Yeah.
sorry, you're gone. Same with disengaged. So one minute you're engaged with these people, and the next you're disengaged. Now this is your first novel, but it's not your first writing, right?
Well, the only other writing I've done is on my blog. And those are
Okay,
just me writing experiences, what I'm learning, what hurt, what helps, that sort of thing. But I've
okay,
never put a story together before.
okay. And that blog is called whattheeverlovinghell.com. So there's a whole
Mm-hmm.
bunch of I thought I read like half of them, but I just was looking through it earlier and I was like, I don't think I've read more than 20% of them, but I'll have to get back to that soon. But it's I mean, I've been reading that stuff for several years now. I think you started about 5 years ago, maybe something like that.
Yeah. Started it about 5 years ago, revamped it kind of once, got rid of a couple of things, put in a couple of new. So half of it's writing and half of it's videos
Yeah.
at this point.
Well, when I read it, I just was struck. I mean, first of all, I'm reading it to be educated by it, but I'm also just looking at the writing style and I'm thinking this is really good writing. I mean, from what I know about writing,
Oh,
it's just
thanks.
really good writing. So it makes me think, all right, so you didn't write really before that. Not that you never wrote anything down, but you didn't write
Yeah.
that before. But you obviously were a reader. I mean, so
Hmm.
would you say that there are any authors that you patterned your work after, or that you say were an influence in some way?
No, I wouldn't say that I patterned the writing style after anyone in particular. I mean, there were books that moved me a lot. To Kill a Mockingbird. I can't start it because I won't. I'll just sit down and finish it. Because I just love that book. And The
Mm-hmm.
Color Purple, same thing. Like I can't pick it up without
Mm-hmm.
having to go to the end, because the end is happy and the beginning is miserable. So you have to read that one to the end. So there's been books that I absolutely love and I read a lot. The funny thing is I read far more nonfiction than I do fiction. If I fit a fiction book or two in during the year. That's about it. Almost everything else I read is educational. But for the style for the book, I kind of did it. It's simple, right? You would say the writing is simple because it's a teenage girl,
Right,
So I
right.
kind of tried to make it like a smart teenage girl, but how like an intelligent teenage girl would kind of view things, because everything's written purely from her perspective, and that's something that didn't that's a more recent style that's grown in popularity, because you almost always older books are in the third person, and
Right,
so it's just somebody narrating everything that's going on, and you can hear what that person's thinking and that person's thinking, and you get their motivations and their motivations. But when you're writing that from first person only, the whole thing, you can only ever see things through the main character's eyes.
right, right.
Yeah, and I enjoyed doing that.
Well, since you mentioned To Kill a Mockingbird, I mean, that is such a great example, and I could see that, now that you mention it, because I mean that was written many years ago, like I don't know, in the 40s or 50s or something, but it was about her own childhood, actually, from what, in
Mm-hmm.
the 20s or 30s, I think 30s maybe. And she wrote it from the perspective of a whatever 8-year-old girl, or 8 to 10, whatever,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that's one of the things that makes it such a remarkable book because I think you're right. It is a fairly new concept. She did it like way before anybody else did it, and it's unbelievable. And that book obviously deals with very adult. I mean, racism and a trial
Yeah,
involving racism where the guy gets shot as he's trying to escape. I mean, and I think that's one of the things that makes that such a fantastic book. And now that I think about it, that's what I really think is really great about Cult Girl is the fact that it's written from the perspective of a young girl, and it doesn't ever deviate from that. It never becomes
yeah,
like only an adult would understand this type of thing, Even in the things
yeah.
that she did to escape, which involved a bunch of things. It involved getting a car and some pills and things like that. And it never gets real technical about that. So it's really, yeah, it's great in that respect too. So well that's
Thanks.
a good answer though,
Thanks.
because I mean what I would say then is that maybe the authors that you mentioned, Harper Lee and I forget, Alice Walker, I guess. Um, I think what happens is when we really enjoy something and are influenced by it, it becomes part of us, and it tends to come
Hmm.
out. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't even realize that's what's happening, but yeah.
Right, right. I mean, I know as a musician that I sat down. I think playing music is different from writing a book in this respect, but I know years and years ago I sat down and played certain records and tried to play exactly like this guy or Eric Clapton or whomever. But then along the way, there's all this other stuff that you're listening to that starts coming out of you, and you make it your own. So I think that's probably what happened with you. It's like it
Oh
was
yeah.
little
Yeah.
Harper Lee, little Alice Walker, maybe, but it's clearly yours. So, is there anything else you want to say about the book in general?
Um, just that it's a fun read. It was fun to write, and everyone who's read it's like, I couldn't put it down. I just had to
Yeah,
finish it. And you can tell by the expression on their face that they had fun reading it. So,
yeah,
I mean, I'm really, really, really proud of that. And so, if anybody's looking on the fence about whether they want to read it, it seems like everyone's really having fun with it. So,
yeah. Well, I can attest to that because when I started reading it right away, I liked it. But this is typical of me anyway. Like it doesn't matter what the book is and how long it is. I'll read a chapter or two and then sort of get bored with it and think, yeah, whatever. And then I'll pick it up and then at some point I get into it and then I can't put it down. That's the typical trajectory of my reading. I don't know if that's laziness or whatever. With your book, I think, well, because I read it before it was actually in print, and I think the first time I kind of did that. I put it down after a chapter or two, and then I was like, I got to finish this, and I really loved it. And then when I got it in print, I just read it like cover to cover again. I might have put it down once, maybe once.
oh,
That's
that's
not
nice.
that's not typical of me. It really isn't. I mean, it's not that I'm a poor reader, but I just don't. I don't know. I just got a book recently that I've read one chapter like a week ago, and I keep thinking, when am I going to read it? So it is definitely a page turner. Um, it's exciting. I mean, it kind of like touches on everything. There's some romance in it, there's love,
Hmm.
right? There's relationship things, and I haven't even really asked you about Eli yet, but there's the kind of thrill of the escape kind of thing. Like, how's this going to work? Is she
Hmm.
going to get away? Are they going to catch her? Is Eli going to be there on the other end when she gets there? Well, Eli, I
Hmm.
guess we should explain who Eli is, maybe.
Yeah, so Eli's like the second main character. He's a fellow that shows up at the farm. He's a single guy. And he's a little bit older than Lily, but they hit it off right away. And
Mhm.
they they combined begin to question the cult leader and his teachings because of some things they find, in the library. They're supposed to be in the library studying, but they're really just there to be with each other. And they find some stuff that, so they begin to question the cult leader and all his teachings together. Only the cult leader, figures that out and has something done to Eli so that he can't be there for Lily anymore.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, and that's part of where I thought, well, he has to come back into the story at some point. He has to. I mean, you got to at least find out he was in a car accident or something. Uh,
something.
because he's too important and he's too good a character. I mean, he's a really good character, a good principled person. Reminds me, in a way, when I was at Brooklyn Bethel years ago, every once in a while you'd run into a guy that was just like, we just call it having an attitude. It's like he doesn't
Yeah.
apparently go along with everything, and it's like, are you kidding me? This is Bethel. You can't question things. This is what, are you crazy? And it reminded me of one particular guy that was. that was like that. But Eli is very intelligent about it. He's a smart guy, and the two of them together, it's like this juggernaut. That's you can't avoid these two people. They gotta succeed in the end. So it is a good ending, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And
um,
in the second book, they'll still be together and they're going
okay,
to face off another challenge, and Eli's going to be a big hero in that one too. So that
oh,
should be
okay.
good.
Oh, I wonder if it has something to do with. Actually, we did talk about this a little, but wonder if it has to do with exposing the Daniel and his cohorts or something, something like that.
Well, the bad guys have to get their comeuppance. Let's
Yeah,
put it
yeah,
that way.
that's good. That's good. Yeah, so that'll be good. So you have to read the first book for the second book to make sense, and that's where you're going to
Yeah,
find out how it gets toppled, I suppose, or maybe exposed at least, and uncomfortable for them. So how do we get this book? Where in the world do we find
yeah.
it?
The best place to go is to the blog,
Mhm.
whatheverlovinghell.com. And right there on the front page, you just hit the button and it'll take you over to a purchase. That's the best way. That's the signed copy, the cheapest way, you
Mhm.
know. So I'll sign a copy, I'll send it to you myself. But it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, it's going to be on Kobo, Google Books. Um, yeah, so you can get it all those ways too.
So I'm sure there's a lot more to your personal story, and there's a lot more we could say about the book, but we have to end at some point. So
Yeah,
thanks for being with us, and everybody, we're posting the names of the places to get the book, and check out her blog, whattheeverlovinghell.com.
yeah,
Thanks, Stacy.
yeah. Okay, thanks, Gary.
Stacy will also be a guest speaker at the Empowered Conference coming up next January in Las Vegas. Thanks for watching.